Well. If I sound a bit sloshy, it's because I just took a sizable shot of whiskey, so if I sound kind of woo, that'll be the reason why. But as it turns out that if you try by the godforsaken hell you've managed to get your terrible self entangled in with modernity and commerce to drown the faces of potential customers in a trough of grotesque slop, people might end up hating you, as well as everything you stand for. Whereas if you don't hate the customer and try to provide them with something they might enjoy, you could find the previous customer base drowning in slop might be eager to enjoy something that wasn't run through a feminist opinionated asshole, which is essentially what happened with Black Myth Wukong, the Chinese single-player action RPG based on Chinese mythology, made by Game Science Studios. The question being here, can the Chinese make games appreciated by the Western market? Well, if the skyrocketing Steam sales is anything to go by, the answer is a resounding oh hell yes. Not a surprise, considering the aforementioned trough was overflowing with the cringe and gay, and most people are not fans of the cringe and gay. Shocking. Now, this game some weeks or months ago caused some flack. I say flack, it was more the animated stench of future cat piss, whinging that someone in a foreign nation dare make a piece of entertainment that isn't filled with political messaging that sustains their miserable lives, and therefore it must be besotted with labels that less and less people give a flying toss about. Naturally then, given that the vast majority of consumers hate these types with a passion, and for very good reason at that, when they place it in the public field of view and complain that it offends them because it doesn't appease their arrogant selves, everyone else thinks it might be something worthwhile, purely on the basis of its existence, and pissing them all the hell off. I wonder if they will ever recognize the vast majority of people do not like them, and giving games that doesn't feature their ideology attention is not a black mark, it's a boon. In fact, it appeared several days ago that certain content creators who were given game keys were forbidden from speaking about politics and feminist propaganda, among other things in their content surrounding the game, and it spawned a brief discussion about the merits of so-called free speech. Naturally, myself being a sane realist, I supported the ban, for a very simple reason. Let's use a bar, for example, seeing as we're in one. In any establishment, in order to keep it hospitable and the ambience enjoyable, there is a certain set of behavioral standards expected from both the staff and the patrons. If everyone behaves accordingly, happy days, everyone's hunky-dory. However, should a rogue element of unacceptable behavior from whoever emerge, an enforcement mechanism must either cease the activity or remove the element from the establishment. This can be done either through internal regulation, perhaps the patrons themselves, or an external arm, be this from the bar security or perhaps even the police, should it escalate that far. So this sort of expectation is at play here, except there are contractual stipulations in exchange for the keys. Keep your conduct about the game. Personally, I don't really see a problem with this. If these people use their free speech to plaster their cringing gay political opinions everywhere, then I don't really care if there's less speech. It's not speech that I'm going to miss anywhere. And it's not a violation of free speech either way. It's a voluntary contract entered into, and it's simply quality control. Naturally, then I approve. So fair play whoever was organizing the distribution of the keys to put these conditions in place. Frankly, this should be the norm. I like order, especially when that order is used to keep out people that get on my damn nerves and contribute nothing. I find it rather amusing, though, that the West appeases the Chinese market by downplaying the existence of certain demographics. You can probably guess my opinion on that one. They bend the knee. Whereas Game Science put their knees on Western liberal necks and went, don't talk about them. And everyone else shook their hands and went, yeah, no problem, carry on. Which is fantastic. However, some journalists, and so help me God, I can't tell if they're genuinely wedded to this ideology through cash or because they're society's rejects, and thus can't help but write about this in a manner that legitimately stirs within my soul some colonialism-esque sort of desire. You can make of that statement what you will. Enter this article. Black Myth Wukong's shameless lack of diversity is attracting the wrong type of fans. Yes, otherwise known as paying customers. Written by one Tom Foley. Rainbow ally pronouns in the bio. All views are my own. What a timeline we live in where your Twitter bio is both indication of cult affiliation and also the punchline of a joke. Oh, my word, modernity really is an insane asylum. We shouldn't be carrying hate into what should be a safe space for everyone. Can I just be honest here for a moment? Any civilization worth its salt, any men that exhibit this level of weakness, they would get bullied until they stop being this pathetic because it weakens the society. Even in our gaming spaces, can you imagine if anyone brought this kind of cringe into a COD lobby? My word, they would be berated until they cried and landed in therapy. And the people who did it would laugh and find it funny, because it is. Black Myth Wukong just launched to a stellar reception, garnering a whopping 2 million players within a day. But things aren't all sunshine and rainbows. Yes, the lack of sunshine and rainbows is the reason it's doing well. Then, of course, they drag up the IGN article, which failed to do any damage. As a matter of fact, their inability to shut up about something that doesn't pander to them seems to have helped galvanize sales, so well done indeed. Then we have here the claim of the fans celebrating the game's lack of diversity. Now, this needs to be elaborated on, because as far as I can tell, there's two types of so-called diversity. The first is diversity Inc., which comes from the taxpayer. Apparently, yes, taxation is theft. It's also very cringe, which is ugly, gay, and black. The second diversity means variation. GTA San Andreas, for example, is the apex of variation. There was no diversity. So these limp-wristed propagandists who claim the game lacks diversity Inc. means to the player, hey, this game is lacking politics, which means the developers didn't waste any time and resources shoving in a bunch of crap that only appeals to a bunch of idiots that don't drive any revenue. That is literally all that means, which follows with this sentence here. Hordes of self-proclaimed anti-woke fans. Do you know what an anti-woke fan functionally means? Your politics can piss off. Again, that is literally all that means. The most telling thing of all is how the Screen Rant journalist who criticized Wukong's lack of inclusion was bullied off the internet by rabid commenters. No one should ever face hate for doing their job. Do tell us what you think of the former American president, why don't you? And no, I disagree. If your job is to be an annoying arsehole, you should definitely face some criticism for that. Kinda hard disagree there. This is all symptomatic of a wider problem that's damaging the industry we love. Agreed, but probably not for the same reason, I would guess. Then this next paragraph talks about the game having thousands of comments praising the game for its lack of pandering political bollocks. The common sentiment is that liberals are in tears, and it sounds like right-wing gamers couldn't be happier. They aren't right-wing, you twat. They're just anti your cringing gay politics. Not that you would understand any of this, of course, being a terminally online cultist to the point where supply and demand doesn't even register to you. I gave Wukong 8 out of 10 in my review, and I'll stand by it. Well done to you. Gameplay-wise, Wukong is fantastic, but after 40 hours, I've yet to encounter a single female character, aside from one inanimate mini-boss called the Mother of Stone, and no one can convince me that's a good thing. Now you see, this kind of behavior just makes me want to start hurling slurs. What kind of gimp plays any game and after 40 hours goes, I've yet to see a single female character, this is bad? Why? Who gives a shit? Considering the reports of sexism running rampant within the developer's workplace, we can only speculate, but I strongly believe Wukong's lack of diversity is adding fuel to the wrong fire. Yes, that fire being sales. By the way, this article is hilarious because the longer it goes on, the more deranged and detached from reality it becomes. It's fantastic. Diversity isn't a bad thing, and we shouldn't be afraid of it. Totally. It only produces the ugliest characters known to the human species, appeals to no one, and therefore tanks companies and burns through currency. Nothing to fear there at all. How about the fact that it makes European supremacy look based and real? Or at the very least, Eurasian, that being male, European, or Asian. Because pattern recognition tells me, when fewer women are involved with any project outside of a model scan, the better the game seems to end up being. I wonder why. Ah, yes, 'tis the power of the Wang wisdom. And these last parts, these last parts are just magnificently stupid. Half of the people on the planet are women. I know, don't remind me. Around 10% of humans identify as part of the Skittle Squad, according to a 2021 survey. We live in a diverse world, and there is no escaping it. Want to bet? So how about we make a game that appeals to the other 90%, considering that customer base is significantly larger? But keep in mind that one part there is no escaping it. Having a diverse cast of characters makes games more believable. First off, considering how ugly your characters look, the notion that makes it more believable is absurd. Secondly, there is no data that makes that even remotely true. It helps female and minority players feel represented. I couldn't give less of a shit about minorities or women. Diversity helps break down stereotypes, like the utterly untrue notion that women don't enjoy games. It facilitates richer narratives and fosters more creative storytelling, and games that deliberately omit diversity feels narrower in scope and perspective, not to mention putting off prospective buyers. Do you see what I mean with the unhinged? The entire point of this article so far is stating this game is selling well, and the forums are chock and block full of people praising the game for it not being political. Now you're telling us it is putting off prospective buyers. Which ones and why the hell should I care? Earlier you said only 10% of the world are the cringe fringe. Do you not understand that 90 is a bigger number than 10? Probably not. Purely from a business perspective, diverse games appeal to more players, as you write about a game selling well, specifically drawing in the wrong crowd when it's omitting the very thing you're saying appeals to more people. Do you realize you're lying to the audience? This is contradicted by what you yourself have written earlier on in this very article. When a developer elects to only feature straight male characters, it means he's based and he knows what the hell he's doing. It sends a message that diversity isn't important, or worse, that it's a bad thing. Yes, it is a bad thing. Diversity sucks ass. Diversity is ugly. Diversity is grotesque. And diversity produces inferiority. A lack of diversity produces superiority. This rallies toxic community members who share the same opinion, encouraging passionate gamers to go for each other's throats. No, they don't. They praise the game and then play it. Shut up. The only time they ever go for each other's throats is in PvP, which again would land this one in therapy. Now check out this last paragraph. Catalyzing a divide between gamers is terrible for the industry, says the man who just said the rainbow hippies represent less than 10% of the world's population. Again, these people all suck at math. We all share a common hobby, and we should stand together to make sure as many people can enjoy it as possible. Again, what part of 90% being the as many people are you not understanding here? The world is divisive enough. There are countless conflicts happening around us that lead to tragic losses of life every day. Yes, I notice them constantly. Gaming is an escape from the tumultuous world we live in. Come again? Gaming is an escape from the tumultuous world we live in. You have bitched and whined about how this game's anti-political stance has drawn in the wrong audience, and yet the game is selling well. You spoke about the need for representation and how diverse the world is, lying about how it drives sales, which the narrative of this very article debunks as a lie. Now you claim gaming is an escape from the tumultuous world we live in. See, this kind of ass leads me to speculate this is written either by some multitude of people or schizophrenic. It's not AI, by the way, because AI has a need to make sense. And if reading this made you mad, I've got one thing to say: cry more. Get real, kid. You are the embodiment of this meme, and we all know it. Oh, and one last thing, and shout out to Ranting Monkey for sharing this one, from a place called Inverse. There's a fitting name given their ideology's relationship with reality. Black Myth Wukong isn't even good, but that won't stop Chinese nationalist and anti-woke sales. Now you see, a normal person would pause and maybe reflect on what you just said, seeing as you implied, merely by not shoving in your undesired political wank, mediocrity can achieve greatness. That is quite the admission, that is. So screw this article, it's written by a female anyway, but the last part here is gold. But without the rabid fanbase of Chinese nationalists and gamergators at the ready, I'm not sure anybody would be talking about Black Myth Wukong in 2024. Yes, without fans and customers, no one would be talking about the product.
I'm surrounded by idiots.
I really am. Cheers for watching, and once again, I apologize for nothing.